The silent invasion. The stars had always been silent witnesses to the rise and fall of civilizations. For millennia, the galaxy had been home to thousands of species, each believing they were masters of their own destiny. They were wrong. In the shadows between stars, the Krell had been watching, waiting, and conquering. The Krell were not like other species. They did not announce their arrival with fleets of warships or declarations of dominance. Their conquest was methodical, precise, and above all, silent. Their technology allowed them to infiltrate worlds undetected, replacing key individuals with near-perfect duplicates. By the time a civilization realized they were under attack, it was already too late. Their governments were compromised, their military leadership replaced, and their resistance neutralized before it could begin. 17 galactic civilizations had fallen this way. The Arcturians, once proud warriors who had conquered a dozen star systems, surrendered without firing a shot. The Viridian Collective, whose technological achievements had been the envy of the galaxy, found their own creations turned against them. The Zoltan Empire, rulers of the Andromeda Arm for 50,000 years, collapsed in less than a decade. No one fought back because no one knew how. The Krell's infiltration technology was perfect, their strategy flawless, until they encountered humans. Earth was not an impressive target by galactic standards. A single habitable world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star at the edge of the Orion Arm. The humans had barely ventured beyond their own moon, their technology primitive compared to the galaxy's elder races. The Krell designated Earth as a Class C acquisition target. Minimal resources required. Standard infiltration protocol. Estimated conquest timeline of 5 Earth years. It was supposed to be routine. The first wave of infiltrators replaced key political and military leaders. The second wave targeted scientific institutions and media outlets. Everything was proceeding according to the established pattern. Then something unprecedented happened. The humans noticed. 6 months into the infiltration, a junior intelligence analyst named Maya Chen spotted a pattern. World leaders who had once disagreed vehemently on policy issues were suddenly finding common ground. Military exercises were being canceled without explanation. Research funding was being diverted from defensive technologies to obscure projects with no clear purpose. "It's not natural," she told her supervisor, showing him the data. "People don't change their fundamental beliefs overnight. Something's happening." Her supervisor dismissed her concerns, but Maya persisted. She created an unauthorized network of analysts around the world who shared her suspicions. They began identifying infiltrated individuals based on behavioral changes and policy shifts. What they discovered terrified them. Over 300 key positions in governments worldwide had been compromised. When they tried to warn the authorities, they found the infiltration went higher than they had imagined. So they did something the Krell had never encountered in 17 conquered civilizations. They went public. Using encrypted channels and anonymous data dumps, Maya's network released evidence of the infiltration to the public. The response was chaotic. Riots erupted in major cities. Military units refused orders from suspected compromised leaders. The Krell's carefully orchestrated takeover descended into chaos. The infiltrators responded with open force, revealing their true forms and summoning support from orbiting stealth ships. What should have been a silent conquest became an open invasion, but the damage to their plan was done. Humanity knew its enemy, and humanity fought back with everything it had. The first year of the war was devastating. Earth's military forces, though forewarned, were technologically outmatched. Major cities were destroyed, billions died, but the humans refused to surrender. They retreated underground, into mountain fortresses and underwater habitats. They studied captured Krell technology and adapted it with remarkable speed. In the darkness of a former nuclear missile silo beneath the Rocky Mountains, humanity's greatest minds gathered to work on Project Thunderstrike. Dr. Elias Montgomery, once considered a fringe theorist for his work on quantum entanglement weapons, led the team. His theories had been dismissed as impossible by the scientific community, but desperation made the impossible necessary. "The Krell believe they understand us," he told the assembled scientists and engineers. "They think we're just another species to be cataloged and conquered, but they've never encountered human creativity under pressure. We don't think like them, and that's our advantage." For 3 years, as the war raged on the surface, Project Thunderstrike continued in secret. The Krell hunted for it relentlessly, knowing that something was happening but unable to locate it. Their infiltration tactics no longer worked. Humans had developed neural scan technology that could detect the subtle differences between a human brain and a Krell duplicate. In the 4th year of the war, Project Thunderstrike was ready. The result was the NSV Defiance, a warship unlike anything ever created in the galaxy. It didn't look impressive by Krell standards. A rough cylinder 3 kilometers long, lacking the sleek design of alien vessels. But its appearance was deceiving. The Defiance was built around a revolutionary quantum entanglement drive that allowed it to phase partially out of normal spacetime. This made it virtually invisible to Krell sensors and immune to most of their weapons. Its offensive capabilities were equally revolutionary, featuring gravitational lensing technology that could focus the energy of a small star into a coherent beam. When the Defiance emerged from its hidden construction dock inside the asteroid series, the Krell didn't immediately recognize it as a threat. This was a fatal mistake. The human vessel approached a Krell battle group orbiting Mars without detection. When the Defiance fired its main weapon for the first time, 3 Krell dreadnoughts, ships that had devastated entire civilizations, were vaporized instantly. The galaxy, which had watched Earth's desperate struggle with a mixture of pity and resignation, suddenly fell silent in shock. The Krell, undefeated for 10,000 years, had just lost a significant battle group to a species they had dismissed as primitive. The response from the Krell High Command was immediate and unprecedented. They diverted 40% of their conquering fleets from across the galaxy to the Sol system. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Krell felt something unfamiliar: fear. As the massive Krell armada approached Earth, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the tactical display fill with enemy signatures. Her crew, a mixture of military personnel and civilian scientists, looked to her with expressions ranging from determination to terror. "They think they're coming to end this war," she told them, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "They're wrong. They're coming to learn what happens when you push humanity to the edge of extinction." She turned to her communications officer. "Send the signal. Tell all resistance cells. Operation Lazarus begins now." Across the devastated surface of Earth, hidden resistance fighters emerged from their bunkers. On the Moon, concealed missile batteries powered up. In the asteroid belt, stealth mines activated. And on the Defiance, the quantum drive hummed as it prepared to make the first strike in humanity's counteroffensive. The battle for Sol had begun, and with it, a new chapter in galactic history. Humanity ascendant. The Krell Armada entered the Sol system with overwhelming force. 5,000 warships, from nimble strike craft to massive dreadnoughts that could engulf Earth's moon in their shadows. Their formation was perfect, their strategy time-tested across 1,000 conquered worlds. They expected a brief, decisive battle followed by the complete subjugation of humanity. They were unprepared for what awaited them. The first wave of Krell ships encountered a defensive network of quantum-entangled mines scattered throughout the asteroid belt. When triggered, each mine didn't simply explode. It created a localized distortion in spacetime that shredded matter at the quantum level. 300 Krell vessels were destroyed in the initial approach. Still, the Krell pressed forward. Their numbers were vast, and they had conquered civilizations far more technologically advanced than humans. This resistance, while surprising, was merely delaying the inevitable. Or so they believed. The Defiance waited in high orbit around Jupiter, using the gas giant's massive electromagnetic field to mask its presence. Captain Vasquez watched the tactical display as the Krell Armada regrouped after the initial losses. "They're adapting," observed Dr. Montgomery, who had joined the ship as chief science officer. "They're scanning for the quantum signature of our minds." As expected, Vasquez replied, "Time to show them our second surprise. Launch the Phantoms." From concealed bases on Jupiter's moons, 100 smaller vessels emerged. They were Phantom-class fighters, each equipped with a miniaturized version of the Defiance's quantum drive. They couldn't phase out of reality completely like the larger ship, but they could flicker in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing from Krell sensors in a chaotic pattern that made them nearly impossible to target. The Phantom squadrons tore through the Krell formation, their gravitational disruptor beams cutting through alien hulls like scythes through wheat. The perfectly ordered Krell battle groups fractured as commanders tried to respond to an enemy they could barely detect. In the confusion, the Defiance made its move. The massive warship phased into normal space in the heart of the Krell fleet and unleashed its main weapon, a beam of concentrated gravitational energy, so dense it bent light around it, carved a path of destruction through the alien armada. But the Krell were the galaxy's preeminent conquerors for a reason. Their high command vessel, the Inevitable Dominion, launched a counterattack using a technology they had reserved for only the most dire circumstances. Dimensional cascade bombs, weapons that fractured reality itself, detonated around the human fleet. The explosions caught several Phantom fighters, erasing them from existence. Even the Defiance, with its advanced quantum shielding, suffered damage. The bridge shook violently as systems overloaded. "Hull breach on decks 12 through 17, reported the damage control officer. "Quantum drive stability at 60% and falling." Vasquez gripped her command chair as another explosion rocked the ship. "They're targeting our quantum systems specifically. They've identified our advantage." Dr. Montgomery nodded grimly. "The Krell are adaptive. It's how they've conquered so many worlds. They identify a species' strength and turn it into a weakness. Then we need to show them a strength they can't counter." Vasquez said, "Contact the Lazarus cells. Execute Phase 2. Across the Sol system, hidden transmitters activated, broadcasting a signal encoded with data that humanity had kept secret since the beginning of the war. The complete analysis of Krell psychology, biology, and technology that humans had compiled from captured specimens and vessels. But the broadcast wasn't aimed at human forces. It was directed outward, to the countless subjugated worlds under Krell control. The Krell conquest strategy had always relied on isolation. Each species believed they were facing the invaders alone, without hope of alliance or aid. This was by design. The Krell understood that unity bred resistance. What they hadn't anticipated was humanity's instinctive desire to form connections, to reach out even in the darkest hours. While the Krell had focused on Earth, human stealth vessels had visited worlds across the galaxy, making contact with resistance movements on conquered planets. They had shared technology, strategy, and most importantly, hope. For years, these connections had remained dormant, waiting for the signal that would trigger a synchronized galactic uprising. That signal now propagated across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, carried by a network of quantum relays that humans had secretly established. On 17 conquered worlds, resistance fighters who had been waiting for this moment rose up simultaneously against their oppressors. The Krell commanders in the Sol system received desperate distress calls from their forces across the galaxy. Their perfect empire was suddenly aflame with rebellion. For the first time in their 10,000-year history of conquest, the Krell were fighting a war on multiple fronts. The Inevitable Dominion, recognizing the existential threat this posed, ordered an immediate withdrawal from the Sol system. 2/3 of the remaining Krell fleet broke formation and prepared to jump to light speed. "They're running," said Vasquez's tactical officer, disbelief evident in his voice. "Not all of them," Vasquez observed. A significant portion of the Krell fleet was maintaining position, including the Inevitable Dominion itself. "They're splitting their forces to deal with the uprisings, but they're not abandoning the battle here. They know that if they lose Earth now, after committing so many resources, the psychological impact would be devastating." The Krell remaining in the Sol system regrouped into a defensive formation around the inevitable Dominion. Their strategy had shifted from conquest to survival. Dr. Montgomery studied the sensor readings of the Krell flagship. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the Dominion. They're preparing something big." "Specifics, Doctor." "Based on the quantum signatures, I believe they're preparing to use a star killer. They're going to destroy our sun." A hush fell over the bridge. The star killer was a weapon of last resort, even for the Krell. It would not only destroy Earth, but render the entire Sol system uninhabitable for millennia. "How long do we have?" Vasquez asked. "Their weapon is charging. 20 minutes, perhaps less." Vasquez's expression hardened. "Then we have one shot at this. All Phantom squadrons converge on the Dominion. Focus fire on their defensive screens. The Defiance will deliver the killing blow." The battle that followed was the most desperate yet. The Phantoms darted in and out of normal space, drawing Krell fire while inflicting what damage they could on the massive flagship's shields. One by one, the human fighters were picked off by the concentrated defensive fire. On the Defiance, the situation was equally dire. The quantum drive had been damaged in the earlier attack, limiting the ship's ability to phase out of normal space. They would have to approach the Dominion more directly, exposing themselves to the full fury of the Krell flagship's weaponry. "Quantum drive at 40% and falling," reported the engineering officer. "One more phase shift is all we can manage, and even that's risky." Vasquez nodded. "Then we make it count. Plot a course that will bring us out of phase directly alongside the Dominion's main reactor section." "Captain," Dr. Montgomery warned, "at that range, the gravitational weapon would destroy us as well." "I know, Doctor. But we're out of alternatives." She opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency evacuation. Escape pods are to launch immediately following our final attack run. It has been my greatest honor to serve with you all." The Defiance's engines flared to life, pushing the damaged warship toward its final confrontation. As they approached, the Phantoms made a coordinated attack run, sacrificing themselves to create a momentary gap in the Dominion's defenses. "Now," Vasquez ordered. The Defiance phased out of normal space one last time, reappearing mere kilometers from the Krell flagship's hull. At this range, there was no need for targeting systems. The gravitational weapon would hit its mark by default. "Fire everything," Vasquez commanded. The Defiance's main weapon discharged with all remaining power. The gravitational beam tore through the Dominion's remaining shields and pierced the reactor core. Simultaneously, escape pods jettisoned from the human warship as its overtaxed systems began to fail catastrophically. The inevitable Dominion, pride of the Krell Empire and symbol of their 10,000-year conquest, exploded in a burst of energy that temporarily outshone the sun. The Defiance, caught in the blast wave, was torn apart seconds after the last escape pod cleared its hull. In the aftermath, as the surviving humans regrouped among the moons of Jupiter, news arrived from across the galaxy. With the destruction of the inevitable Dominion and the death of the Krell High Command, the Empire's strict hierarchical structure had collapsed. Individual Krell commanders, faced with simultaneous uprisings on multiple fronts, were surrendering or retreating to defend their core territories. 6 months later, representatives from 24 species gathered on the partially rebuilt Earth to form the Galactic Cooperation Council. The humans, once dismissed as primitive, were now looked to for leadership. Their unique combination of adaptability, creativity, and indomitable will had accomplished what no other species had thought possible. Admiral Vasquez, one of the few survivors from the Defiance, addressed the inaugural session of the Council. "The stars have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations," she told the assembled delegates. "They watched in silence as the Krell conquered world after world. But they also watched as humanity refused to fall, refused to surrender, refused to accept that resistance was futile. And now they watch as we build something new together. Not an empire built on conquest, but a cooperative built on mutual respect and shared strength. The galaxy, once ruled by fear, now looked to the future with hope. The silence between the stars was broken, filled instead with the voices of free peoples working together. And at the center of it all was humanity, who had taught the galaxy the most important lesson of all. No power, no matter how ancient or advanced, could stand against the indomitable human spirit when pushed to its limits. In the vast emptiness of space, rumor spread of the species that had broken the unbreakable, defeated the undefeatable. Across thousands of worlds, they whispered the name of Earth with newfound respect, and in some corners of the galaxy, a touch of fear. For if humans could accomplish this against such overwhelming odds, what might they achieve when given time to truly spread their wings among the stars?